back to another episode of the Top Attorneys of North America podcast. Today, we're joined by a highly accomplished attorney out of Glen Ellyn, Illinois, James Kenny. Jim represents individuals and businesses across a wide range of complex litigation matters. Jim has litigated in state courts at both the trial and appellate levels, appeared in federal courts, including the Northern District of Illinois and multi-district litigation in California. But in recent years, Jim has developed a strong focus on first-party property loss and insurance disputes, advocating for policyholders in high-stakes claims and ensuring individuals and businesses recover what they're rightfully owed when insurance companies deny or underpay legitimate losses. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sal. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate this opportunity to explain what I do and hopefully, make people smarter. So,
excellent. We're glad to have you on as well. So let's just start at the beginning, Jim. I always like to ask the attorneys that come on the show, what inspired you to become an attorney? Was there a specific moment that pushed you towards it, or?
I like to think of, looking out for people who are less fortunate and getting them, representation and giving them a voice. That's really what I try to do. And I found that insurance coverage, especially in these first-party property loss cases, that there's a real need for that.
Yes, sir. Was there a specific moment or experience that pushed you toward insurance disputes, property loss work?
So I was always fascinated by insurance, even when I was in law school, and then worked in the field for many years, worked at Aon Corporation representing businesses and insurance companies. And I've also worked in law firm as a, coverage attorney. But it wasn't until I had my own practice and my own law firm that I got a case that involved a fire loss. It was the first one I handled, and it was probably in 2008, 2009, something like that. And the person really had a need. He was a disabled older gentleman whose building burned down, and the insurance company was denying the claim, and they were alleging that he started the fire. There were 2 points of origin, and I thought this guy was not firebombing his house. And needless to say, what we were able to develop was that he was, back in that time, there was a change in the chief of police for his district, and he basically was a neighborhood watch person. And there were some individuals in the neighborhood who had an interest in getting him out of the neighborhood. And that's what happened. We believe we had gotten some real good testimony from the police chief and changed the narrative. The insurance company had their narrative and wasn't listening to their insured. So when we got involved, we listened to them and we carried the water and got a great result. And then after that, I just seems like these cases just pop up, and there's
Yes,
a real
sir.
need.
Excellent. Excellent. For our audience, please, because we're going to talk about first party property loss a lot. Break down in simple terms what exactly is first party property loss claim.
Sure. So most, homeowners policies, commercial general liability policies have basically 2 main parts of coverage. The first part is property coverage, and the second part is third party, liability coverage. And the first one with property coverage is generally referred to as first party property loss claims, and that's where someone has they own property, residential real estate or commercial property, or even an auto policy to a certain extent has certain first party coverages built into it. There's a fire or there's hail damage, wind damage, flooding, whatever. That's a you make a claim on for your property under your own insurance policy, and that's called first party. So you're the party, you're the insured, you're making a claim to recover under your policy. A third party claim is a liability claim. That's where someone uh, has been injured or there's been some commercial breach of contract or something to that effect, and they sue you, you're the insured, and that's a third party. They sue you, you, the insured, are seeking representation, and you contact your insurance company and say, I've been sued. I need a defense against this third party, and that's a third party liability case. So those are the two main areas, and it gets it's a uh, flow chart. It expands uh, pretty broadly, but those are the general areas there, and there's other types of breaking down different types of policies, but we don't need to get into that right now.
Yes, sir. So when I had a power surge at my house and it blew out the air conditioner compressor, the central air, and I filed and I put a claim in with my insurance company, that's a first party property loss claim.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. What are the most common types of first party property claims that you see? I know you mentioned fire.
Yeah. Well, we see fire, we see water damage situations, pipes bursting, backup, sewer backups. There's also some pump failures, uh, water infiltrating through a window, or there's hail damage or wind damage, and those are claims in and of itself, but usually you don't discover there's been some hail or wind damage until there's another event, and that would be water infiltration, and that becomes a water claim. So those are the ones that I see mostly. There's all uh, many different types of first party causes, causes of loss.
Do you focus on one more than the other?
We do. We focus on fire loss, catastrophic loss cases. There's, usually, and this goes back to why I got into practicing law, and that's because people, they lose their home, they lose their business, and the insurance company, you know, investigates, is what they call investigation, and really what they're doing is they're trying to create a narrative to justify a denial, and they say no, and we try to change that outcome.
Okay, let's talk about that for a little bit then. Um, what are some of the biggest mistakes policyholders make when filing a property claim?
So even before you get to filing the property claim, you should always look to make sure your coverage is accurate. So what's important? Make sure you own the property, you're in the named insured on the insurance policy. I see situations where someone inherits property and they don't change the name on the insurance company, but the deed's been changed. Now there's a claim, there's a loss, and they make a claim on this policy that they've been paying for, only to discover, whoops, my deceased aunt or one of my parents is named as the named insured, and they don't own the property anymore because I personally own it. Those are tough situations. It's technical defenses that insurance companies have, and as a result, your attorney is going to have to come up with some equitable claims to justify recovery in those situations. So that's very important. And then also the insurance policy. So someone owns a multi-unit building, and they think, oh wow, I got it. I had this other policy that insured this building, and now I've got this one agent who's, cut my insurance premium in half. But they don't look at the policy to realize it's not a landlord policy. They've got a homeowner's policy on a multi-unit building where they're not residing there, and that becomes a big problem. So even before you have the loss, really, you got to read that policy and you got to make sure you've got the proper coverage. And there's, don't, if you have a question, ask your agent, clarify it, and make sure if you're a landlord, you tell your agent, I want a landlord's policy, you know. And if you're not residing there or you've got some construction going, make sure your agent's aware of what's going on. So those are the first things. But then let's say you've got a loss, a fire loss. I think the most important thing is first thing is make that claim and document as best you can the loss and what happened. You know, sometimes even writing down, I met with the adjuster on this date and I told him or her these things is good. You're gonna keep a record, and it's contemporaneous with the point at which you made those representations or did certain things, and that carries a lot of weight because these cases are all about the insurance company's story, and what we try to do is we try to change that story from a no to a yes, and in order to do that, we need to change the narrative and they're focused on certain facts, and you, the insured, should be focused on maybe other facts. And that's what we try to figure out in each of these cases.
Yes, sir. You bring up some very, very important um, pieces of advice, especially with the large transfer of wealth that we're seeing now as the baby boomer generation gets older, making sure that your name is on the insurance policy. That's super important. And you also said, I speak to a lot of personal injury attorneys, and they always tell me the insurance companies are not in the business of paying money. So I have to imagine that it's the same in your arena. And you told us that you hear a lot about denied or underpaid claims. What are some common tactics that insurance companies use to, like you said, outline or direct their own narrative?
So really, and they have to do this, and they're required to do it. Really, is to gather information, and it's the gathering of information, and there's nothing wrong with that. But and then hiring experts. They bring in experts to find the cause and origin of the fire and things like that. It's the story that they come up with and the decision that they make in focusing on certain facts and ignoring or finding uncredible other facts so that they can reach the conclusion of no coverage. And therein lies the problem. And so what we try to do is we try to get in there uh, after a claim's been denied and figure out what their story is and where are their assumptions and how their story falls apart. And then we try to rebuild that and get a coverage, a yes for the insured.
Should I call you first before I get to that point, or wait until I get to that point where they deny me?
So there's a couple things as part of their investigation. So one of the things they'll do as part of the initial information gathering is they may ask the insured to sit for an examination under oath. And the insureds in Illinois, they have an obligation to cooperate with the insurance companies, which would include generally sitting for one of these examinations. It's like a deposition, and that really, when that happens, the insureds should definitely contact an attorney, whether it's me or someone else, because you want to have that representation, and you have to take this seriously. I think a lot of people make the mistake of, hey, I've got nothing to hide, so why do I need an attorney? Because you need to understand the significance of what you're saying, because what you're saying at this point, you've got a lot going on. You might not be prepared to go in where they ask you dates and times and who was present and who wasn't present. And a good attorney is going to sit down with their client before the examination and they're going to want to hear the story and they want to say, oh, what time was that? And make sure that we're all on the same page. This was the date that the fire happened, or, this is the time that I met with the adjuster, or I was at this event at the time of the fire, not some other event. And, time, people can forget those things. And they go into these examinations and they're not prepared. And they're not that they're misrepresenting, but they don't recollect properly at the time, and they just state things that aren't necessarily accurate. And then you've got to correct that in the future. And so, yeah, I think that would be a time certainly where someone during even the information gathering phase, they would want to definitely get an attorney involved and be represented.
Yes, sir. One term that I've heard a lot, and I'd like you to properly explain as well, is bad faith insurance claim.
Sure.
Can you explain to our listeners what exactly is a bad faith insurance claim?
So, Illinois has a statute, Section 155, that gives a first party property claim insured the ability to pursue bad faith damages, which can allow the insured to recover attorney's fees, statutory punitive damages, and it's where the insurance company vexatiously and unreasonably denies or delays the payment of a claim. And
Hmm.
so that it turns really, it's a fact intensive investigation. And, you know, uh, it comes up when the insurance company denies or delays the payment of a claim. And it's really, from what I've seen, there's some horrible situations where insureds have found themselves in the insurance companies. The real motive behind the denial or the delay only comes to light when the lawsuit's been filed and the discovery requests have gone out and the depositions of the people are being taken, that you finally discover what the reason was behind the wrongful denial.
Hmm. I remember Hurricane Sandy here in Long Island, and
Oh
many
boy.
people, waiting for that insurance money to rebuild their houses. That delay, does that fall under bad faith insurance as well? A bad
Yeah,
faith
so
insurance
it's
claim?
not a real black and white test. It's a, it turns on the totality of the facts, and you really have to develop those facts and have the situation where the denial is construed by the trier of fact to be vexatious and unreasonable. And so it's not just negligent or whoops, or a simple email where they make some inappropriate comment. It's a series of things, and you can find you know, the the motive and the planning, and so you really got to dig into it.
Yes, sir. And now I know you handle individuals, residential. You also handle business owners as well.
Yes.
Many of our listeners are baby boomers who own businesses. How can a major property loss impact a company's ability to sell or transition? We touched on that on another episode not too long ago, where we're seeing again that large, shift in wealth. What should we be doing, to protect ourselves when it does come time to sell or transition?
So yeah, the uh, when a commercial property has you know flooding, so there's a warehouse, it has all this product in there. There's flooding, there can be a fire. Um, it's this, a similar type of thing where you're document, record, many times, and you've got to, the best way I think to document these large losses is to get a public adjuster, and that's your adjuster, not the insurance company's adjuster. A lot of people are confused by that. So in the residential and in the commercial arena, where you're documenting your claim, the insurance company will come out and say, we're going to have the adjuster, our adjuster. And when they say our, they're not referring to our, me, the insurance company, and you, the insured. We're getting our adjuster together. No, it's our insurance company adjuster who's looking out for us. And I see the worst situations where that adjuster comes out and they lowball it. I mean, just 30% of the actual loss is documented, and the insurer, the policyholder, they can have their own adjuster, and it's called a public adjuster in Illinois. And the public adjuster represents their interests. They they should have, so you got to vet the person. You've got to dig into them, make sure they're credible, they have a good history, check out their Google ratings and things like that. And that person is going to have the insured, the policyholders' best interest, because many of those contracts will have a contingency component as part of their fee, so they don't get paid unless the insured gets paid. And they're interested in maximizing the recovery, just as the adjuster for the insurance company is interested in minimizing the recovery for the insurance company. And in my experience, if you've got a real good public adjuster, they're going to be able to level the playing field, and they'll use this software called Xactimate. And what it does is it has a pricing list that punch in, and insurance companies accept it, and it allows the insured to compare apples to apples with the insurance company's adjuster, not apples to oranges, so that they're like two ships passing in the night. And when they're negotiating, they never reach a resolution, and it's fodder for the insurance company to either deny the claim or lowball the recovery, and then the insureds don't have sufficient funds to repair or restore the property. It becomes a major problem.
So interesting. I mean, so many things you don't even think of. What should business owners or property owners of multi-tenant dwellings reviewing their policies? What should they be looking for right now to avoid problems later?
I think the most important thing is to make sure that that insurance policy they have is a landlord policy, and that they're covered for the situation that they're in. If they don't reside at the property, make sure that policy doesn't require, it has a dwelling term, and then later on they define that term as requiring that it be the residence of the insured and the named insured. And if they don't reside there, that can be a problem. There's certain legal ways that insureds, and we've been successful. In fact, I got a great ruling this week in a situation where he didn't reside there. He let the agent know that he wasn't residing there, and yet the agent wanted to get him in a small, lower premium policy, and he converted it and put it into a homeowner policy. But because of the type of loss that it was, and because of the law in Illinois, we were able to overcome a motion for summary judgment, and we got a great ruling this week.
Excellent. You mentioned a couple of cases. Number one, in the beginning, you said the fire case that you worked on. This case now, obviously, you're making a difference for your clients. Is there a couple of cases that really stand out? You don't have to share names, but maybe just outline for us.
I had a smaller. It was a smaller case where we took on appeal. We made some real good case law about 3 years ago, The It was one of these situations. So, you think, oh, I got coverage. They're paying the claim. I've got my contractor. The contractor's uh, going to do what they're going to do. It's a total loss. They gut the place. They rip out, all the drywall, and they end up having to do most of the electrical and the plumbing because of code upgrades and other things. But then at the end, insult to injury, the insurance company, who was previously denying the claim because they were alleging it was an arson situation, which it turns out it wasn't. But then at the end, even after all the work had been done, they denied paying the depreciation holdback. So you've got a replacement cost policy. You figure when my property gets repaired or restored or replaced, I'm going to get the full value so long as it's within the limits of coverage that I purchased from the insurance company. But what you find out is they don't have to, or at least they take the position that they don't have to pay the depreciation holdback unless you get the repairs done within a certain time period. And so in Illinois, there's some statutory law that allows the repair and replacement to be done within a reasonable time period. And we got a great appellate court decision uh, in the first district in Cook County, Illinois, that was a hard fought battle. And really, it was, I tell my clients, don't litigate for principle, right? I mean, if you litigate for principle, hopefully you're a nonprofit and there's other people supporting you because the recovery just typically isn't there. But this was a situation where I thought that the law was clear. There hadn't been really a case on point on this issue and using the statutory language, and and so we pursued it, and we got a great result for the client, and they were very happy about it, and we're really happy that we're able to assist them in that way.
Excellent. What do you think separates attorneys who handle these types of cases casually versus someone like yourself who truly specializes in first party property loss?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've thought about this a lot. And, when I first started and I was a young attorney, I thought it was all about understanding the policy language. And then what I've really discovered over time, it's right now, especially with artificial intelligence, it's pretty easy now to read a policy. You can put in your search query and you can get a pretty good answer and you'll understand it. But really, where these things turn, it's getting in and finding out what's this insurance company's story? What did their investigation reveal? And finding out what that is and taking it apart. And then the real good attorneys rebuild that story to get the best result they can for their clients. So there's no coverage. Now the answer is yes. And that's what we try to do. And I think that's what really separates, one type of attorney from another attorney that handles these type of cases.
If someone experiences property damage tomorrow, what are the first three things that they should do?
Well, right away, you got to notify your insurance company. Make sure you make the claim, write down the claim number, get a claim number, write down the claim number, document the loss, take pictures. Photos are great, not only as part of the investigation, but also uh, if the carrier denies the claim, there are things that we'll use and it goes to trial. Photos, tell what's the saying? A photo's worth 1,000 words.
Yep.
I mean, it really truly is. And right now with technology, you can take a little, you know, 8 by 10 photograph and you can blow this thing up on a big board and you can zoom in uh, uh, and it's amazing. So that you've got the jury or the judge sitting there, and you can pinpoint what you're trying to talk about. Whereas in the past, we'd take a photograph and hand it and pass it down, and the jurors would look at it. And you don't know, are they looking at that one point of origin that we want to focus on or
Yeah.
not? Are they just looking at everything else? Oh, what? Oh boy, look at all the contents here. It's really destroyed, you know. So that's a good thing. So notify your care, give notice, get a claim number, document the loss, and if necessary, if it's a large loss and you're overwhelmed, vet a public adjuster and get a public adjuster out there to start documenting that loss.
Are there any red flags that people should watch out for when dealing with adjusters?
Uh, so public adjusters or insurance company adjusters?
I would say insurance company adjusters.
So the insurance company will come out. They'll send out their adjuster, right? And their adjuster goes out, and typically it's a day or two after the loss. And if you've got an adjuster for the insurance company saying, "Hey, I've got a contractor you should use," red flag. I mean,
Mm.
they should not be doing that unless it's part of their contract. Get that in writing. Let their home office know that that not public adjuster, that this insurance company adjuster uh, is recommending a contractor to you, because I've had situations where I have clients who then said, they didn't want to use the person because they didn't think the person was qualified. They didn't like the reviews they saw online, and then the claim got denied, and that's part of that vexatious and unreasonable denial. So if you have it documented, like you called the home office, you said, "Hey, this adjuster, is this normal?"
Yeah,
And
getting a
in my
getting a
experience,
kickback.
it's not, right? And so
Yeah,
that's a big red flag. You've got to document that, and get your response to it, and maybe even hire an attorney at that point, even though it's early on in the claim process, just so it can be vetted, and the insurance company takes that seriously.
yeah. I could imagine. I could see that happening, even in this litigious day and age that we live in. These guys obviously they're just looking to make an extra dollar if they're recommending a contractor to use. It's
Well,
crazy.
and then if you can establish that they're receiving some additional fee, a personal fee, and they're an employee of an insurance company,
That's big.
that's outrageous.
Yeah. What's one piece of advice you wish every policyholder understood before filing a claim?
That you know that I think some people create a relationship with their insurance company, and they think they're always going to be standing there behind them and backing them up. They have the good hands people, you know, uh, they're on their side. They're not.
Hmm.
This is an adversarial process. Our legal system is set up to be an adversarial process. The adjusters that the insurance companies use sometimes will lowball. They use the wrong price list. They miss whole rooms. The square footage is off. So you got to take it, that this is, uh, you know, you got to use common sense, but you got to recognize that they're not necessarily in your corner. And there's a lot, you know, uh, billions of dollars in claims that process in Illinois every year. I heard some stat that uh, the hail and wind damage claims in Illinois for one carrier exceeded $1 billion, and of that, they only paid out half. Right, so there's a lot of money in here, and you're thinking, I have, it's a $50,000 loss. What's the big deal? Or I've got a big deal. I've got a multi-million dollar property they're not going to screw me over. Uh, you have to recognize what is our legal system and how is it set up. It's an adversarial system, and the insurance companies drafted the insurance contract. They drafted it not necessarily to benefit the insured. You see, at renewal time, you're getting broad coverage, but they're also restricting coverage. So they might give you one kernel, but they're taking away several other things through adjusted exclusions and other things. So they're not necessarily in your corner, and you've got to protect yourself. And the best way to do that is to go in with your eyes open and be on guard and verify.
Understood. For me personally, I shop, my homeowners insurance, etc. And, let's be frank, everybody wants to get a good policy at the most inexpensive rate. Do you suggest going with a bigger company, or does it matter if I go with a small company? Or, in the end, like you said, you have so many claims that are left unpaid. I've heard crazy stories where, insurance companies have gone belly up and nobody has, received money. And is it better, do you think, to stay with those bigger names? Because I heard what you said, you're in good hands, or we're on your side, so I understand those references. Am I better off staying with them?
Well, to make a general statement like that, I think the most important thing is to make sure, you can check out what's the rating of the insurance company. Is it AAA rated? Is it, is it not? Uh, I think really importantly is if it's a reputable, well reserved company, which you can find out their ratings. Um, Make sure if you're a landlord, you got a landlord policy. If you're a homeowner and you own multiple properties, make sure your broker knows that you have multiple properties and that one is your primary residence and maybe the other one is a summer home or a vacation home in Florida. For people who live in Illinois, I imagine where do people from Florida vacation? Do they go to Illinois or they go further south?
I I don't know. We call them snowbirds here in New York. The
Right.
ones that go to Florida and then come back. But I never even thought of that. Checking the rating of the company, super important. And I
Yeah.
want to go back to something that you said earlier that caught my ear. Obviously, technology is changing every industry, and you mentioned that you utilize AI. Um, how are you leveraging the power outside of just reading documents?
So there's legal, there's legal work, right? That AI can do, and it's really allowing lawyers, good lawyers, to do a lot more work. And what are those things? You know, Research, um, uh, indexing, reviewing documents, huge volumes. We file a claim, we'll get 10,000 documents from an insurance company for a fire loss case. And unless in the past you needed someone who had this experience to really dig through it and not have to spend a considerable amount of time reading every page of every document. I could just dive right in and pull out the ones that I know have the information that I need to help uh, take apart the insurance company's story and rebuild it. So that's leveling the playing field to a large extent. But really, what AI cannot do, AI cannot go in and make good judgments and decisions about what facts are important, what facts are not, what depositions need to be taken, and in the deposition, you can get a great deposition question like through AI. But when you're sitting there and you get an answer, you have to have that knowledge and experience to be able to capitalize and know what the next follow-up question is that wasn't generated by AI. So that's decision making, it's the counseling that that clients need, and AI is not going to be able to provide, and that's why the real good attorneys are focused on that type of service, and they provide that, and they can provide it. They can even do more of that now, whereas before they'd spend a majority of their time just sifting through the policy or the production that the other side produced, or third parties. So it's a tool like anything. It's allowing the really good attorneys to do more work and help more people. That's kind of how I see it.
Yes, sir. Streamlining operations, able
Yeah.
to bring in more people. But you're saying don't go represent myself using ChatGPT.
Oh,
No.
no, I mean, there are situations where, um, well, and when I've had associates, and I've used ChatGPT, and because I was an associate at one time, and I did all the research and read all the cases and stay abreast of it. I have a really good sense, and I know the big cases. And if I get a opposing party who writes a motion that uh, misconstrues a case that I'm intimately familiar with, it's not that it's completely false, but it wasn't the holding, or I know it's been distinguished by another court, and ChatGPT isn't necessarily going to let you know that, and it's going to, reach a conclusion that is based on a faulty premise, and that's so someone who's representing themselves, and they're not an attorney, even if, even attorneys, an attorney who represents himself, they say, has a fool for a client. So we in the industry, we even recommend attorneys hire attorneys to represent them when they're involved in litigation or drafting contracts and things like that, because they're too in the woods and they can't see the forest from the trees.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, so that's why I would certainly recommend people hiring an attorney to help them respond to denials of coverage so that you
Yes.
can get someone who knows what they're doing to get a result that you're looking for.
Yeah, and obviously you're on top of the legal landscape. It's evolving quickly. You read all the new case law. That being said, where do you see your firm in the next 3 to 5 years? Are there specific areas you're looking to expand or double down on?
Well, we're really focused on representing policyholders. That's where we really focus our attention. In these first party property loss cases for fire loss, we have a lot of experience in that area. I think there's a large need. I intend to grow into that area. And some of the other areas that are really interesting to me are like cyber policies,
Mm.
and how are those things being handled? And I can only imagine that there are a lot of businesses out there that have cyber claims that have been denied or they haven't been paid properly. And I think that's a really uh, it could be a hot area in the future. It kind of reminds me of these recall policies. Uh, there is a when those policies first came out, it was like the Wild West. Grocery stores and other food distributors had these recall policies, and no one really knew what they were. They were charging large premiums, and then there were claims made, and there are little nuances in the policies, and that law is finally evolved. And I imagine the cybersecurity is going to be another area where there's going to be, there's not a lot of case law. Although there is case law because these policies are, you know, they're either indemnity policies or, a duty to defend policy, and those things. So you can, if you have the knowledge and experience, you know how to take what was rulings in the past and apply them to the new type of insurance. So I think that's a big area.
Yeah, so interesting. I didn't even think of that. I'm going to do research on that later. Maybe we'll have you on again as well to talk about that.
Well, yeah, I'll have to do a little research, and we'll put together a white paper, and we'll come on and we'll talk about it.
Excellent. I mean, I love talking to you, Jim. I've had many conversations with you over the years. Always eloquent, very easy to speak to, and you have a large caseload. I want to know, what's the secret when you step away from the office? What are you doing to decompress and recharge? What can others do to stay as calm and well-mannered as yourself?
Well, I have a wonderful family. My kids really motivate me and keep me on track. As much as I feel like I'm, there to provide them with love and support, I feel like they provide it to me. I think it's wonderful. So I spend a lot of time with my family and my kids. But I also really enjoy golf and, things like that, and friends and family. I think that's everybody needs community. It's very important. I think right now you've got all these other types of podcasts, not the legal podcasts necessarily, that are talking about, all the advances in medicine and health and things we can do to just stay healthy and live a quality lifestyle is very important, and I try to do that, and I encourage everybody to do that. So
awesome, I love it. And for our listeners in the Chicagoland area that would like to get a hold of you, what's the best way to contact you? Your phone number, website, email?
Well, really, all those things. We have a website. It's kennylawfirm.com. You can reach us through that. You can call us at 312-641-0700. You can email us at info@kennylawfirm.com, or write us a letter.
Excellent. I'll be sure to highlight your contact information for our listeners. And Jim, once again, this really has been incredibly insightful. First party property loss is something most people, like I said earlier, don't really think about until, they're in the middle of it. And from listening to you, it's obvious having the right advocate can make all the difference. So for our listeners, if you're a business owner, a homeowner, understanding your insurance coverage and your rights is critical. And we've been speaking with attorney Jim Kenny out of the Chicagoland area, a leader in insurance disputes and first-party property claims. Jim, thank you again so much for joining us.
Sal, it was my pleasure. So good to see you. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Top Attorneys podcast. The Top Attorneys celebrates the achievements of leading attorneys across the nation. To be featured, send a message or visit www.topattorneys.us.